G'day guys, Mark Tyndall here, the only independent voice in Lindsay. Well, it's day 4 of pre-poll and it's my 4th day down at High Street talking to voters like you. I've spent the best part of the last few days trying to put together a post on preferences, but to be honest, it's turned into a bit of an essay. So what I'm going to do is break it down and put it into a video so that it's easier for you to understand. Here's my how to vote card. Now, if you want to deliver some to family and friends, then please call me, email or message. I'm more than happy to arrange to get some out to you. As you can see, on one side, I have a streamlined list of policy priorities, which I posted on Monday night. On the other side is instructions on how to vote. Now, I've mentioned previously at Lindsay, which is every voter that falls inside the boundaries, and if you have a look just on the wall behind me of the map, Lindsay had the largest rate of informal votes in the entire country in the 2016 federal election. That's over 11,000 voters that either didn't like any of the options or didn't know how to vote properly. So this is why my number one goal is to have a clear how to vote card that's easy to read and is easy for you to follow. Now, obviously, I'd love you just to simply vote one Mark Tyndall and be done. But to make sure that your vote for me is counted, you need to mark every other box on the ballot, small ballot ticket that you'll receive either at pre-poll or on election day. It's a must, there's no exceptions. How you fill in the other boxes is entirely a matter for you. All I've done is make suggestions based on the best information that I have at my disposal. So let's go through each of the numbers so that I can walk you through my decision-making process. As I said before, I want you to vote for me so that I can be elected to work for you and only you. I certainly don't want you, and I'm certainly not asking you, to vote for someone just for the sake of voting for them. Now, after myself, the only other candidate or party that I proactively preferenced is the Sustainable Australia Party. That's because it's the only party talking about a reduction of net immigration and a facts-driven population policy and its relationship to infrastructure needs, living standards, the cost of living pressures for everyday Aussies like you and me. Beyond that, it was a bit of a dog's breakfast and a toss-up between the least and worst candidates or parties and avoiding some type of hopscotch-like how to vote card that's hard to read and hard to follow. So let's start at the bottom. In last place is Jim Salem from the Australia First Party. As a previously convicted criminal and historical Nazi sympathiser, it was an absolute no-brainer for me. Above him, we've got the candidate for the Christian Democratic Party. I believe it's the same gentleman that ran in the state election in Londonderry. We only learned that he was running on the day of the ballot draw. He didn't turn up to the draw, so I got a sense that he was just a paper candidate that were listed solely to help the CDP secure voter dollars and supply preferences to the LNP. In 7th position is the candidate from the Fraser Anning's National Party. Just like the CDP candidate, we only learned that he was running on the day of the ballot draw. He too didn't turn up to the draw, so again, I get that sense that, like the CDP candidate, he's just a paper candidate listed solely to help Fraser secure voter dollars and, who knows, perhaps flip the bird at the media. Like the CDP candidate, I haven't seen any campaigning or any policies from these two, so I guess that's how they netted their spots. So that leaves us with the larger parties with the larger budgets and certainly the larger advertising campaigns. As I've articulated in other posts, I honestly do believe that Clive Palmer has diagnosed a problem with the major parties quite well. But to be quite honest, I certainly don't think he's the solution. And I certainly don't trust him to follow through. His lack of detailed policy is concerning, but it's the blanket deal with the LNP that's undercut any credibility that guy had left. It leaves me with a feeling that he just actually doesn't believe what he's saying, that he's just a salesman, which is apparent when you see signs. Right under Make Australia Great, the signs say Made in China. This pretty much sums him up and earns the UAP the lowest spot that I could give them on my ticket. Mr Best, the Greens candidate, nice enough guy, He's a Penrith local like me. To their credit, the Greens have probably got the most articulated policies of all three major parties, and they attempt to get into the finer detail, which I think is great because it invites critique and debate. But when you look at the finer details, it's easy to make an informed decision. And like me, I honestly don't think the voters of Penrith will reward Mr Best for his stated goal of 100% renewable energy by 2030. It's just too expensive, it's certainly disruptive, and I have no doubt that it comes with its own unintended negative environmental and human costs. I understand the Liberal candidate, Miss McIntosh, she ran for the Blue Mountains Council in 2016, third on the ticket in the 4th Ward, obtaining 69 votes of her own. Like me, she's jumping into the deep end for the first time. And in 3 weeks' time, we'll know if local voters will support someone who lives close to the electorate, but who doesn't live in the electorate. For my 2 cents, I simply cannot preference someone that doesn't even have the backing of her own local Liberal branches. On principle alone, I can't preference Miss McIntosh, and I haven't even got the Liberal policies yet. The Liberal Party's website, it sets out claims of past achievements and it turns to, future visions and motherhood statements where there's very little detail. And quite frankly, I'd expect a hell of a lot more detailed plans from $1 million party with access to every ministry. Some recent announcements from Miss McIntosh and Mr Morrison, they read as a list of things that the LNP state and federal governments, they should have delivered years ago. And they definitely shouldn't be used as federal campaign promises. It's just bloody ridiculous. It's like the cat that just keeps recycling the same dead mouse. You just don't earn any brownie points. That said, I've got concerns about the ALP and their big Australia, just like the Liberals. I'm also concerned on the application and effect of a number of their policies. Some might suggest that they might be on the front foot and that Chris Bowen has articulated a refined fiscal message over the past 2 years, but there's still some crucial details that concern me. So if elected, I would seek to pull back the reins, to reduce unintended disadvantage and to ensure that the access to opportunities, it has to remain our chief goal. On a personal level, I must admit that the way the ALP treated their own MP, Miss Emma Hassar, it leaves a lot to be said. I think it was terrible. Furthermore, I'm deeply concerned that Miss Beamer's recent announcement that Labor would build the expensive fuel pipeline to the second airport. It's somewhat hypocritical when you think about it that Miss Beamer was elected to State Parliament in 1995 off the back of being a campaigner against Badgerys Creek Airport. The Mayor for Blue Mountains and MP for Blacktown, they remain opposed. Even more so now that the flight plans are yet to be spoken of. For me, it's an ethical dilemma, not just because I support high-speed rail as opposed to an airport. It's a position that I might add you can view on my website. It's more an ethical dilemma because I'm worried about how many more times Western Sydney will cop it purely because Miss Beamer will backflip or follow the party line rather than fight for you or me. When I boil it down, in my opinion, the only thing that Miss Beamer has going for her is her history to the local area. Now, good, bad or indifferent, at least she's connected to the electorate. And in principle, I couldn't preference a non-local Liberal candidate. And because I, like you, as I mentioned before, have to number all the boxes, the local Labor candidate ultimately won the toss. And then when we add in making the how to vote card easy, that's how I come up with 3, 4, 5 and 6 on my how to vote card. So to recap, you must fill in all the boxes. I'd love you to vote 1 Mark Tyndall, number the rest as you see fit. Or you can follow my how to vote card. It's entirely up to you. As I said, it's purely based on policy and the individual candidates or party. Once again, I really appreciate your support. Have a great night. Cheers.